valuable use of the OPM's time to do
Okay.
meeting minutes. And that also takes the burden off of the committee, so you can fully participate in the discussion.
So chair and vice chair, but we don't need anybody in name, right? For secretary?
You should have a clerk,
Right.
but they won't be responsible
For report.
for doing the minute.
Right.
Unless there's something that happens where, you don't have a recording of a meeting, then they would do the minutes.
All right.
For those that are novice to town politics, what would be the responsibilities of these, vice chair, clerk?
So vice chair usually is more of a support to the chair, and in the absence of the chair would run the meetings. Or for any reason, the chair steps down or whatever, becomes incapacitated, then the vice chair would take on that role. But usually it's support, setting usually agendas are set before we even leave the room. But the chair does set the agenda, so it's just more of a support position and running meetings in the absence of the chair. That's basically the vice chair position and role. Clerk, as we noted earlier, is going to not do the minutes, but
I'm the clerk for the finance committee, and basically, we'll get an email of all the minutes, convert it into a PDF, send it to the team members prior to the next meeting, and then we vote on it at the next meeting, whether it's approved. And if it's approved, I take that PDF and I send it to a list of people in town hall, and they file it. And the only time yes.
Yeah.
Before you submit it to the committee for approval, you'll do a quick check just to make sure. Usually goes to the chair, vice chair, and the clerk. Do a quick check, make sure everything that, looking at your notes, making sure everything's covered. There's never been an issue. The only time I've ever taken minutes myself is like when we have a meeting with the select board or a meeting at town hall. I just have to write a quick notes about anything we talked about. So it's not very complicated.
And of course,
I'm the
the chair is
secretary for
doing the
library.
Yeah.
We have to do our minutes.
Yeah, that's tough. I wouldn't have volunteered.
For me, it's like 2.5 hours after the meeting. I just.
Yeah, it's
get back through everything. So having somebody else do it is,
you're right. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. So the chair, sets the agenda and does a lot of the communication with the board. A lot goes through the chair. The chair will also be the, go-to with, once the OPM is hired, they'll, and setting agendas and running the meetings. But, we're a committee of several individuals with great experience. And, so it's not too much of a heavy load, but it's just kind of keeping the committee on task and making sure that, we're moving in the direction that, that's usually set by agendas and how you conduct the meeting.
I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering, next time, if we could have a list of everybody's names,
Contact information.
emails, telephone numbers, contact information for the entire committee. And then, do the same rules apply that we cannot have side conversations? I know in the finance committee, we cannot have.
sure.
I mean,
Does everybody in here have to take the open meeting law training?
yes.
Okay, so there's no side conversations. Okay, got it.
Meaning more than a quorum of the board can't get together and talk. That's
Oh, yeah.
open meeting law.
No. We have to follow all open meetings.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just explaining
Oh.
All right.
to the rookie.
Yeah. I'm trying to look for it. I'm gonna grab a piece of paper to, contact info. Oh, that's bigger than.
Right, worth at 5:15 was. This for them.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
And I
you.
made it for 2 hours. You need it.
2 hours is the,
Colleen, you might want to put in tentative every first Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll look at that. I can't get Wi-Fi in here to check, so I just hurried and checked that
Works.
Does Barry send the link? Does the town clerk's office send the link about the open meeting law, the ethics?
I think they probably do that. Did they do that when people got sworn in?
I didn't get one. I've been sworn in twice. I don't, I don't know. Do I have to do it again?
I didn't get one this time. You did get one?
No, I do.
Um,
Do you want me to reach out to Barry?
I think that's probably a good idea. Yeah.
It's an online training.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't take long. An hour maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember. I have my notes.
And you get a certificate at the end, and that gets reported back to the clerk. But I'll reach out to Barry or the clerk's office.
You can pass it.
Thank you.
So Anne Marie, if the group is not gonna organize at this meeting, you'll continue on at kind of as the facilitator until a chair
Mhm.
is. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so do we want to discuss next steps? Next steps will be organized. That's when funds. Oh, review available funds, yeah.
So let me just, I want to just give you a brief rundown on this. From the May 5th, 2025 annual town meeting, Article 11 allocated $150,000 for this purpose. And we also have $49,135 remaining from Article 3 from the May 1st, 2023 special town meeting. So you have pretty much $200,000 to get started. My guess is that's gonna be enough to get you under contract with an OPM, at least through schematic design. It's not gonna be enough to get you under contract with an OPM and an architect. So the way designer selection works is you do the solicitation for an OPM, which is an owner's project manager first. And we get them hired, and then they will help us determine the budget to go to the fall town meeting for funds for an architect. And then after additional funds are allocated at the fall town meeting, the group will do another round of designer selection for your architect. My recommendation for you to think about and discuss is how far into design do you go, knowing that this project is going to need a ballot question. So, design going all the way to final plans and specs will easily be $1 million plus. So the group should kind of have some idea about at what point do you advance design and then go to town meeting and the voters for the ballot question, because I don't think it's recommended that we do $1 million worth of design and then the project is not supported at the ballot. So one option is to make sure that we have funds available to get the project through schematic design. And that's essentially you know, that's essentially the design you would take to town meeting and to the voters for a debt exclusion on the ballot. And once we have the OPM on board, that person will be able to help guide us and talk to us about what is a reasonable ask at the fall town meeting for the amount of money we would need for an architect to get us through schematic design.
And that's where you think it's gonna cost over $1 million? Or-
No, full design, development and construction documents would be the million plus. Schematic design is essentially it's beyond conceptual. But you have not done all of the code work, you haven't done all of the details yet. So for OPM and architects, it's a couple $100,000 each. Less for your OPM, but that's a conversation for the group to have as you lay out your timeline, knowing that the construction funding is gonna need to go to the voters. So there's positives and negatives. You won't have a fully designed building when you go to the voters, so you won't be able to answer every single detailed question. But you also haven't invested, $1 million+ into something that may not be supported. So right now, you've got 200 grand to get you started. But understand there's options and it's kind of a fluid process to lay out the path forward to getting everything, under contract for a full design. But we'll take it one step at a time, and having the OPM on board will help guide our decision making.
It's similar to how the fire
So the fire station,
station.
the Southside Fire Station went to town meeting with a schematic, an early schematic design. Now, granted, there was a lot of conversation in the public about that project for years, and there was a lot of support for that project. So, you have to be aware of the political environment you're working in. But the fire station went to town meeting without,
Final design.
without a final. It had an early schematic design essentially to just give people an idea of how it was gonna look and be laid out. And then when it passed at the ballot, the design money was part of the $18.8 million debt exclusion. So there was that project had to go through a lot of feasibility for sites. But because this project is reusing the site, there's not as much, on that end. So there's options all along the way. One thing that this group will need to kind of discuss with your OPM very early on is, where is the new library going? Is this building being torn down and the new library is being built in this position? Because if that's the case, then you have to plan a temporary library and a relocation. And that is a project in and of itself. So there are kind of some sequencing things that we need to make early decisions on in order to, efficiently be able to get us to an end product. But those are things that, you need to be thinking about. Do we have to tear this building down before the new one is going to be built? And what does that mean for, a couple of years in there while the new one's being built?
And is the goal really to go to town meeting in this fall with a schematic?
No,
Okay.
no. So
No.
the goal would be to go to town meeting in the fall for money to hire an architect.
Okay, all right, okay.
And then you'll work with your OPM and your architect as the design team on the schematic design,
Okay.
and probably go to the annual town meeting in 28. probably.
Okay, schematic design.
28.
May of.
May of
28.
28.
Of May.
But those are things, that we'll need to lay out with your OPM. And the reason I'm saying you would have to wait till May of 28 is because for an election, unless you're going to trigger a special election in the fall, your only opportunity to go to the ballot is with the May town. And if you want to discuss and debate, essentially triggering a special election after a fall town meeting, that's an entirely different, political question. You'd have essentially a single issue ballot, and that can be a risky approach. So, there's a lot of things that will have to be laid out mechanically in the schedule to make sure you can hit all of your targets. But in reality, it's gonna take you a little while to get to a schematic design.
Where does the library state money process fall into this whole thing?
So that's a very good question, and this group is going to have to determine that. This group is gonna have to do that research and determine how that calendar overlays this calendar, because as the building committee, the public is going to expect that you go for those grants.
We're also on the trustees talking about creating some sort of private foundation to raise private money so that if we do have to go to the state, it's not as big of a hit, which should hopefully give us a greater chance to get some state money and reduce the amount we have to get from the town, from people.
What is the expectation of total cost of this project? Like mid-20s, somewhere in there?
Closer to 40.
And then,
Based on the feasibility study, did you see any of the feasibility?
no,
Yeah, that should be on the website.
If you go
So
to
it's interesting,
Bourne,
yeah.
library resources, you'll find like the old stuff and the new stuff.
Yeah,
take a
the
look at
more
it.
recent feasibility with breakout of cost estimates, rough cost estimates.
Yeah. There's always be more.
When it happened.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it was
Yeah.
late spring.
Yeah.
Because it was Maytown meeting when we went for the article, the 150.
What is the library's property here if you're talking about, either building it on the existing footprint that it is on, or let's say setting it back to use this?
All research the committee will need to do.
You will get some of those answers.
Yeah.
You look at the feasibility study when you
Yeah.
get a chance,
Well, there,
and it will show you, because this
Okay.
is town property, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
there,
it's a little bit more than just where the buildings sit.
yeah, there's gonna be, if this group is gonna suggest rebuilding the library behind on the field, that's gonna be, a public debate and discussion.
It's a very popular field.
So that's what you'll have to weigh about,
Right.
Where
do we push it forward?
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, there, basically. Those are the three options. And of course, right, renovating
Versus
knocking down, the need to save the front facade. All of that was done in the feasibility study, but the final outcome was 19 Sandwich Road and make it look as close to historically the nature and atmosphere of the village. That was probably the biggest outcome of the feasibility study.
when you go online to look, all of the, reviews of the building, like the, what do you call it? The mechanicals
Yeah.
are all on there, and it explains a lot of what is here now and how certain decisions were made from that. So, and you guys have that expertise, so
They do want
you really need to look at that.
review it, yeah.
Todd, the chair of the trustees, also has library building experience too, so.
Anything else? Pardon?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. So then we'll,
Question.
sure.
If we decide to visit other projects or libraries, for instance, how would that be handled? Would that be, can you just do that?
You can do it.
Can I just drive to
You can,
Harvard or something?
yes, you can do it on your own individually.
Mhm.
It's a little bit more complicated if the group goes, because then it's technically.
Right, if they have a quorum, but I mean, with the Excellent Building, they did that, they reviewed some projects.
I guess the only thing I would say is, there was a feasibility study done and I would encourage the building committee to keep an open mind as you work with your OPM and your design team. The feasibility plans may not be they may not be anything close to what we actually end up designing. So take them, for information and for context, but
Right,
you're not locked into it. The only thing you're locked into is that it has to be a new library. We're not doing a renovation. That's the only decision that we're locked
because,
into.
yeah. But, a lot of the public comments are really important too.
Mhm.
Mhm. And what they want the building to look like. And the field.
So let me ask you, is there any areas that there could be a temporary library for 2 years? Any vacant town
So
buildings?
that's all conversation we're gonna have to dive deeper into. We raised it in the feasibility study, but we did not identify really truly space. It was a subject, the topic that came up, but it wasn't the focus.
Mhm.
Most likely the town would end up having to rent space. We don't have
Yeah,
empty square footage.
yeah.
Well,
Not.
'Cause I remember when sandwich was being built, we went to the temporary sandwich one, or being whatever. What's going on there?
Sandwich is a nice library to look at, but I mean, it was a renovation, not a rebuild. But I don't know if you've been in there, I really like it. I like its size. That's my concern with the feasibility study result, is that it just seems so much bigger than we need.
yeah.
I don't know.
That, at that time, it was based on program needs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a.
But those are all
big part of it.
things that are really important conversations to really have and to fine tune programming needs and how do we meet those needs and best utilize space, how it's solved. Yeah.
And if you do end up going for a Massachusetts Library Board grant, that those square footages, they will kind of set those square footages.
Yeah. They're small, medium, large, the way
Yeah,
the grant funding works.
yeah.
They want to give you money, but they tell you
Yeah.
a lot of things, how to use it. All right, so, discuss next steps, designer selection process, secure an owner's project manager. So I think the next step obviously is to organize, and then we can put that on that agenda to discuss, that selection process. But town hall will help with
Yeah.
the language, and setting up what the RFP will look like for owner's project manager, and then we'll have the responsibility, obviously, of reviewing as they come in and reviewing, and making a decision. But, they will they will help us in the process of posting the RFP
Yeah.
and the content of the RFP. So we'll be able to take a look at that when that comes. A schedule to
So
seek
that's-
future funding from town meeting, so that's sort of.
So, sorry, so the town writes and submits the RFP for the,
So they'll help in that process once we decide, once
you
we.
get a chair?
Yeah, you'll have to organize first.
We'll have to organize first and then, we'll look at what that RFP will look like, the contents of it. And then once we decide on that, it'll get, town hall will post it.
Okay.
What's an RFP?
A request.
So request for proposal
Okay.
So we have
as
to go,
opposed to an RFQ.
yeah, so we'll have to go out to we'll have to do a competitive selection process, but it's not necessarily price-based. So the group will kind of describe what it is that you're looking for, and then you can interview and rate kind of first, second, and third, and then the price is negotiated. So you're not locked into having to use the lowest bidder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that also-
Depending on how many, responses you get.
Okay.
From the RFP, but if, usually town hall, do you filter out if they don't?
No,
You don't filter out, right?
we give
So if they
them,
don't meet,
we give them all to the building committee.
okay,
And then you independently review them based on their paper submission, and then you discuss as a group and decide, do you want to hold interviews with any of them?
Do we have common OPMs for town?
we do not.
Do not. Okay.
Each project
Something different.
It-
All right, great.
can't,
You
you,
can't, you have to go to public.
yeah, each project has to go
Well,
out.
I just meant, does the same companies always apply?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
That was my question. All right.
Some are, some are more specialized than others, so especially once you get into the architectural firms, you may have architects who focus on public safety versus libraries, or you have architects who focus on schools versus public safety, so, but each building has to go through this process.
Some of what we're talking about that's going to happen when you get your charge, if you haven't had a chance yet to look through the designer selection procedure, it sort of goes through what you're talking about, the steps that have to happen and what the applicants have to need for us to select them.
So we'll put that on the next agenda. After
Maybe, okay.
any other additional comments, questions? Everybody's good? All right, so we'll see everybody on the 4th then,
5:15.
5:15 on the 4th.
And we have no homework?
No, just think about what office you wanna
Thank you.
Yeah.
volunteer.
Wait, no homework.
Yeah, until you organize, you can't really do too much.
I have the contact info, so I guess I can send that out to the whole committee.
You can.
There's a couple
I'll
people.
just run a test.
Yeah.
Test email, and I'll send it out. I'm pretty sure I have Todd.
All right.
I'm pretty sure I had Todd email.
I know, I just got another scam email from his email account.
Oh,
I got one as well.
Yeah.
Well, that was strange.
About shopping at Amazon. Right after I got elected to the trustees, I got that email too. And I didn't know anybody. I get this email, I thought he was in trouble.
I mean, I've met him once. It's a strange email.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
thankfully, it's a,
And I haven't talked to him because
so has he resolved it?
I haven't talked to him
Oh,
since I got it. I just,
He thought he did resolve
I thought he resolved it before, but I've gotten two since then.
Should I close this out?
motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. What time do we have? 3:47.